I don't just want gold. I want gold that never finishes. I never want to lift a finger again.
For one brief second, the crack across the mirror shimmered softly. But Emma did not notice. She was already imagining piles of gold reaching the roof. She was already imagining servants bowing before her. She smiled to herself, and somewhere beyond the glass, something accepted her request. Emma was about 16 years old with bright eyes and smooth skin that made people say she was born for something greater. But if beauty alone could change a person's destiny, Emma would already be living in a palace. Instead, she lived in a small mud hut at the edge of the village. The hut had a weak wooden door that creaked whenever it opened. The roof leaked during heavy rains. That hut was home to 3 people: Emma, her mother, and her little brother Toy. Their father had left years ago. One evening, he had simply packed a small bag and left without explanation. He never returned. At first, Emma's mother waited. Then she hoped. Then she prayed. Eventually, she stopped expecting him. Life did not pause because a man left. Life demanded survival. And survival meant work. Every morning, before the rooster crowed, Emma's mother was already awake. She would wrap her faded Ankara tightly around her waist, balance a basket of vegetables on her head, and walk to the farm while the sky was still dark. By sunrays, she would already be weeding, harvesting, or bending over rows of vegetables under the hot sun. After farming, she would rush to the market to sell what she harvested. After the market, she would return home, fetch water, cook, wash clothes, sweep the compound,
Thank you, my son.
and somehow still find money for school fees. Her hands were rough, her back was bent, her feet were always dusty, but she never complained in front of her children. Toyi had learned early that life was not gentle. Even though he was just 10, he would sometimes wake up early to fetch water before school. He would help arrange vegetables in the basket. He would carry small loads without being asked. But Emma hated work. She hated the way sweat felt on her skin. She hated the way her mother's hand looked after farming. She hated the word manage. If her mother asked her to sweep, she would yawn loudly. "Oh, my head is aching," she would say. If she was asked to help at the farm, she would walk slowly, dragging her feet. If she was told to wash plates, she would sigh as if she was being punished unfairly. "I didn't come to this world to suffer," Emma would complain often. "Why must we struggle like this?" Her mother would look at her quietly and say, "My daughter, nobody chooses struggle, but we must work if we want to eat." Emma would roll her eyes. While her mother and brother walked, Emma would sit under the mango tree near their hut, plucking at the dry grass and staring into the distance. In her mind, she was somewhere else entirely. She imagined herself living in a huge castle with tall golden gates. She imagined silk gowns that flowed behind her as she walked. She imagined long tables filled with food. She imagined maids bowing to her. "Emma, what would you like to eat today? Emma, shall I brush your hair? Emma, your carriage is ready." In her imagination, she never lifted a finger. In her imagination, money never finished. Coins poured endlessly from treasure chests.
I can't believe all this gold is mine. It's absolutely breathtaking. Look at all these sparkling gems.
She would smile to herself and whisper.
One day, I will not suffer like this.
But days passed. Nothing changed. One evening, after her mother returned exhausted from the market and her brother had fallen asleep, Emma stood alone inside the hut. The only light came from a small kerosene lamp placed on the wooden stool. She walked toward the cracked mirror hanging on the mud wall. The mirror had been there for years. It was old, its edges chipped, a thin crack running across one side. Emma stared at her reflection. She touched her smooth face.
You are not born for poverty,
she whispered to herself. Emma leaned closer to the mirror.
I wish I had riches without working for it. I wish money would come to me without stress. I don't want to suffer. I want a life of ease.
She stared at her reflection, expecting nothing. For a brief moment, the reflection seemed slightly different, as if the eyes in the mirror were watching her back. Emma blinked. It was normal again. She shook her head and laughed softly.
It's just my imagination.
But as she turned away and blew out the lamp, she did not notice that the crack in the mirror seemed to shimmer faintly in the darkness. And somewhere in the deep silence of that hut, something had heard her wish. The next morning, Emma woke up later than everyone else, as usual. The hut was quiet. Her mother had already gone to the market before sunrise. Toyi had left for school with his worn-out sandals and small school bag. Emma stretched lazily on the raffia mat. She yawned. She stood up slowly and went outside to fetch a small bucket of water. She bathed without hurry, humming a song she had heard in the market days ago. After bathing, she would wrap her towel around her body and walk back into the hut. The cracked mirror hung exactly where it always had. Nothing special about it. Emma sat down on the small wooden stool and picked up her comb. She began brushing her hair gently. Then, something tiny hit the floor. Tink! She paused. Her eyes shifted downward. A small, shiny object lay near her feet. She bent down slowly. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked it up. Gold. Real gold. No, she whispered. She brushed her hair again. Another small piece fell. Her breathing became uneven. She brushed again. Another. And another. And another. The tiny gold pieces dropped onto the floor like scattered seeds. Emma gasped loudly.
This must be a dream.
She slapped her cheek lightly. She was awake. The gold was still there. Her eyes sparkled in disbelief. Quickly, she gathered the pieces into her wrapper and tied them tightly so none would fall. She didn't even bother wearing proper clothes. She ran outside barefoot and ran toward the village market. The traders looked at her curiously as she ran past them, breathing hard. She headed straight to the small wooden stall at the corner of the market, the one owned by an old gold trader who dealt with miners from neighboring villages. The old man looked up.
What do you want, girl?
Emma untied her wrapper slowly and poured the gold pieces onto his table. His eyes narrowed. He picked up one piece, examined it carefully, scratched it against a stone. Pure gold. The old man counted the pieces carefully and offered her a thick bundle of money. Emma stared at the money. More money than she had ever seen in her life. Her hands shook as she collected it. And in that moment, something inside her changed. Excitement turned into hunger. Not hunger for food, hunger for more. She didn't go home. She didn't think of her mother who would return tired and hungry later that day. She didn't think of Toyi who sometimes slept without enough food.
Can I get a small sack?
Sure.
Thanks.
Instead, Emma walked proudly through the market. She bought 2 bright dresses. She bought shiny bangles that made noise when she moved her hands. She bought hair ribbons. She bought colorful sandals. She bought fried meat, sweets, chin-chin, groundnuts. She ate as she walked. When she returned home, she hid them inside her old box. That night, after everyone slept, Emma went back to the mirror. Her heart beat with excitement. She picked up her brush again. She brushed. Nothing fell. She brushed harder. Still nothing. Emma frowned deeply. Why? She brushed again. The floor remained empty. Fear and frustration mixed in her chest. She dropped the brush and leaned closer to the mirror. Then she whispered again.
I wish I had riches without working for it. I wish money would come to me without stress. I don't want to suffer. I want a life of ease.
The crack in the mirror shimmered faintly, and somewhere in the darkness, something listened again. The next morning, Emma did not wake up slowly. She jumped out of bed before the sun had fully risen. Her mother had already gone to the market again for the day. Toyi had gone to school with his worn-out sandals and small school bag. Emma rushed to fetch water, bathed quickly, and hurried back inside with wet feet. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from excitement. She sat in front of the cracked mirror and picked up her brush. Then she began brushing. Gold began to fall in small, steady drops, hitting the floor one after the other.
It worked.
She whispered. She began to laugh. She still didn't think about her mother who would return tired, her back aching from carrying vegetables under the sun. She didn't think of Toyi who sometimes pretended he wasn't hungry so her mother could eat the last portion. All she saw was gold. Gold meant freedom. Gold meant no suffering. Gold meant she would never be like her mother. She gathered the pieces quickly, tied them tightly in her wrapper, and ran to the market again.
This is more than yesterday. I told you I get lucky.
You certainly did. Here you are.
He paid her more money this time,
Thank
much
you.
more. And this time, Emma didn't just buy dresses and sweets. She bought expensive fabrics, new sandals. She even bought small jewelry made of silver and beads. She walked through the market like she owned it. By afternoon, she didn't even bother going to school. What was the point? School was for people who needed jobs. She would never need to work. She began hiding bundles of money under her thin mattress. Each night, she would count it slowly, smile to herself, dream bigger dreams. Her mother began noticing the change.
Emma, where are these things coming from?
Don't worry about me. I worked for some villagers today.
Her mother frowned. Emma almost laughed. If only her mother knew.
Emma, can you buy me new sandals? Later.
But later never came. She never bought food for the house, never paid school fees, never helped her mother on the farm. She ate the sweets alone at night. She admired herself in the mirror longer each evening. The girl who once wished for comfort was slowly turning into someone else. Someone colder, someone harder, someone greedy. That night, she stood in front of the mirror again. Her eyes no longer held wonder, they held hunger. She leaned closer to the mirror. This time, her voice was different, stronger, demanding.
I don't just want gold. I want gold that never finishes. I never want to lift a finger again.
For one brief second, the crack across the mirror shimmered softly. But Emma did not notice. She was already imagining piles of gold reaching the roof. She was already imagining servants bowing before her. She smiled to herself, and somewhere beyond the glass, something accepted her request. The next morning, Emma woke up before the rooster crowed. Her heart was already racing. Today she would never worry again. She bathed quickly, splashing water over her shoulders carelessly. She didn't even dry herself properly. She rushed back inside, dripping, breathless, excited. The mirror was waiting. The crack across it looked darker than usual. Emma didn't notice. She sat down, picked up her brush, and smiled. She brushed. Gold fell. She laughed softly. She brushed again. More gold fell. She stood up in excitement and brushed harder. Gold began pouring like grain from a broken sack. Emma laughed loudly. I'm rich! I'm rich! She spun around happily as gold continued to fall from her hair in shining streams. The gold began falling faster, hotter against her scalp. Emma paused. Okay, that's enough, she said lightly. But it did not stop. It hit the floor and began piling up rapidly. Wait, she laughed nervously. She tried to move towards the door, but gold pieces rolled under her feet. She slipped, fell, scrambled up. Emma ran outside. The villagers heard the strange metallic sound. They came out of their huts. They gasped. Gold was flowing out of Emma's house like a river. Children screamed. Women covered their mouths. Men stared in disbelief. What is happening? Emma's mother was returning from the market when she saw it. Her basket of vegetables dropped from her head immediately. Tomatoes scattered across the dusty road. Emma! She ran towards the hut. Gold had already filled the compound. Emma, what have you done? Emma was screaming now. The gold reached her waist, her chest, her shoulders, her neck. Emma's eyes were wide with terror. I asked for it. I asked for gold that never finishes. The villagers gasped loudly. Her mother's face went pale. The gold was now at Emma's chin. She could barely move. The same gold she had dreamed about, the same gold she had smiled for, the same gold she had chosen over food for her family, was now rising to swallow her whole. She tried to shake her head. Stop! Stop! I don't want it anymore. But it kept pouring. I don't want gold, she screamed. I don't want it anymore. I will walk. I will help you. I will never be lazy again. The gold continued pouring for one long second. Then the flow stopped. The gold froze mid-fall. For a moment, everything was still. Then suddenly, the gold vanished. All of it. Emma collapsed to the ground, shaking violently. The villagers stared in stunned silence. Her mother rushed to her and pulled her into her arms. She was crying like a child, and for the first time in her life, Emma understood something. The gold she wanted so badly was never a blessing, it was a test. That night, Emma did not stand before the mirror. She did not even look at it. She took the mirror and threw it into the bush. Emma lay beside her mother and little brother on the raffia mat, staring into the darkness. Her body still trembled slightly. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The gold rising, climbing, suffocating her. She could still feel the weight of it against her chest, still hear the metallic sound pouring like endless rain. Her mother did not scold her that night. She did not shout. She simply held her daughter's hand tightly, and that silence spoke louder than anger ever could. Emma did not sleep easily, but when she finally did, it was not with dreams of castles and silk gowns. The next morning, before the rooster crowed, Emma opened her eyes, not lazily. Her mother was just sitting up, preparing to step outside. She looked surprised to see Emma
Good
already
morning, Mama.
awake. Emma didn't say much. She simply stood up. She tied her wrapper firmly around her waist. She covered her hair. She carried the empty basket. Her mother watched her carefully.
Mama, I'm coming with you.
Emma said quietly. They stepped out together into the cool morning air. For the first time in a long time, Emma walked beside her mother, not behind, not complaining, not dragging her feet, beside her. At the market, Emma did not stand around admiring fabrics or staring at shiny things. She arranged vegetables neatly. She called out to customers. She helped measure and pack produce. She carried heavy baskets without grumbling. Her palms hurt, her back ached, sweat rolled down her neck, but she did not stop. At midday, when her little brother arrived from school, Emma handed him roasted corn she had bought with honest money. He looked at her in surprise.
You bought this for me? Yes.
That evening, they returned home tired. There was food in the pot, there was laughter, there was peace. From that day forward, she no longer wished for riches without effort. She no longer fantasized about maids serving her while she did nothing. She still dreamed, but her dreams changed. Now she dreamt of owning a large shop in the market, of helping her mother rest one day, of sending her little brother to school with shoes that fit. She walked every morning. She went back to school. She saved small coins carefully in a clay pot, and slowly, the village began to notice the change. She has matured, elders would say. She has seen something. Years later, whenever children in the village complained about work, their parents would shake their heads and tell them a story. They would say, easy riches come like sweet honey, but too much honey can drown the foolish. And Emma, now older and wiser, would lower her eyes quietly whenever she heard those words, because she knew she had tasted that honey, she had almost drowned in it, and she never forgot that lesson again.